So sometimes the impurities can seep into the ocean and we don't even notice it. But you can still get sick from it. In other words, the effects of that can stay with you. So the same is true about the impurities that you let into your heart, into your mind, in the world. They can seep in. It isn't like all of a sudden you get hit with some negative influence and you're just like, wow, I'm a completely different person. It's just over time, it has an influence on you. One of the worst things that a person can be told a lot of times, a girl can be told, you're just like your mom. You know, when you're 17, like, no, I'm not, how dare you, you know? And then when you're in your 30s or 40s, if someone turns to you and says, you're just like your mom, you'll be like, yeah, just like my mom. Guys, some of us, you're just like your dad. No, I'm not, I'm nothing like him. And as you get older, you'll be like, wow, I'm just like my dad. Hopefully in the good ways.
Strong. And if any negativity were to go into it, it wouldn't be affected. And then I thought of connecting the heart to love. And then I connected that to, I got picked from the last class. Love so strong that no matter what happens to it, it remains unfaltering and it perseveres, so it doesn't become impure.
Questions, comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah, that's good. That's good. That's gonna be twice in a row. You're probably gonna say it better than me. I like it. It's good. Yeah. How deep is this? Is the sea? Pretty deep. Yeah. Yeah. And how wide is it? Yeah. And what's a sea like compared to a puddle? Like how much impurity do you have to dump into a bathtub before it becomes impure? Like you won't take a bath in it.
Not that much.
Yeah, not much. How much into a swimming pool? Well, how much into a sea? Yeah. How much impurity do you have to receive before you become impure? How much impurity does your heart have to receive before it becomes impure? How much negative influences have to seep in before your character becomes impure? Because we oftentimes say that we can resist the negative influences, but how would you know if you weren't able to? In other words, if you're watching, if you're looking at a sea, how do you know when the sea becomes polluted? Anybody ever go into the ocean here a lot? You go swimming in the ocean or you go surfing or anything? You guys go to the beach a lot? Anybody? Yeah, I go there all the time. And anybody ever go there after a storm? Yeah. Why not? You do. Why don't we go after a storm? Anybody know why?
Well, trash comes out.
Yeah. So yeah, actually a bunch of bacteria comes out. We oftentimes think that the sewers overflow and they dump into the ocean. Sometimes, when there's that much, if there's that much rain, there's that much storm, you can actually dump the sewers into the ocean, which means all the stuff that we flush ends up out there. And that's pretty nasty. But even if it doesn't, even if it's just a bit of a light storm, the rainwater actually changes the pH levels in the ocean and bacteria comes in. So you can get really sick if you go in the ocean. You're not supposed to go into the water until at least 72 hours after the rain. And if you ever go to the ocean after a storm, you can smell it even. Now, if you look at the water, it won't look any different to you. It'll look the same. And if you're like me and you have I have almost no sense of smell, I'll go out there and be like, smells fine to me. And I'll have a friend who'll be like, he's like, oh dude, it smells terrible out here. So you're lucky you can't smell it. I can't even smell the pollution. So sometimes the impurities can seep into the ocean and we don't even notice it. But you can still get sick from it. In other words, the effects of that can stay with you. So the same is true about the impurities that you let into your heart, into your mind, in the world. They can seep in. It isn't like all of a sudden you get hit with some negative influence and you're just like, wow, I'm a completely different person. It's just over time, it has an influence on you. And that only makes sense if you think about when you were growing up, how did you learn how to speak? It wasn't that all of a sudden one day you were like, I can talk, I can explain myself. No, it's after literal years of listening to the people around you, your parents, your family, listening to them talk. And you'll notice that a lot of times your speech patterns are going to mimic the people who were around you when you learned how to speak. And then as you grow older, you'll pick up the speech patterns of other people. But none of us sits there probably and says, I want to sound like my parents. I want to sound like my friends. It's just one day you do. Why? Because of so much of these little streams of influence that feed into the seed that's you. It could be your heart, it could be your character, it could be your personality, it could be just whatever you are. Now start thinking about what it is that we let into our lives, the things that feed into the seed. Because the seed isn't just form. The seed is made up of the things that feed into it, like an ocean. So now if you start thinking about it, what is it that you're letting into the ocean that's you? Again, it's your mind, it's your heart. I guess ask that question, what are the things that are feeding in there? What are the things that you're inviting in? What are the things that are coming into you that you don't even realize it? Just like those influences about speech patterns. You live in a culture, you live in a society, so oftentimes we'll think that people are products of their environment, people are products of their society, and this is all true. But we're also products of so much more. You ever think about it? Why is it that the music that you listen to appeals to you? Like, why is it that some people are drawn to classical music? Why is it that some people are drawn to country? Why are some people drawn to hip hop? I mean, some people even like jazz. There's taste. There's music for every taste. And then if you ask yourself, like, why is that? Now, an inquisitive mind is going to be the one that asks, why do I like these things? Versus the one that just says, I just like it. No, there's a reason for it. And it isn't necessarily a bad reason. It's not necessarily a good reason. It's just a reason. It's just an explanation. And so if you start listening to the music that you like, well, man, now start to ask yourself, why is it that this music appeals to me? Why is it that these lyrics appeal to me? I was just listening to a rapper that I haven't listened to in a long time. He was from the 90s. He was from a group called the Ghetto Boys, which I imagine they have a song called My Mind's Playing Tricks on Me that I imagine almost everybody in here has heard. If you're to play it, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've heard that song. I heard that one song. You'll hear it coming up in a few, you'll hear it next year, right? This year, Halloween fell on a weekend. Me and Ghetto Boys are trick-or-treating, yeah. You'll hear them next year, because next year Halloween falls on a weekend. And there's this rapper, Willie D, he's part of the Ghetto Boys. I hadn't listened to him in a long time. And I started listening to him again like last week. It's just funny. He's so angry. And if you listen to him, you're just like, dude, how does a guy squeeze that many F words into one sentence? And it's just like pure rage and anger. And it's just like about anything. You know, it doesn't matter what, like the price of a big gulp. You know, he's pissed off about that and he's yelling about that. And I think about it, and I was talking to a friend of mine, and we were listening to it together, and she hadn't heard it before, he was laughing, and we were just, you know, he's angry, and I'm like, that's back when rap was dangerous. Because you would hear that stuff, and it's stuff that he's pointing out that you might be like, yeah, why is the price of a big gulp so, you know, what it is? You know, why is it that the police act like this? Anyway, I think about this, and I was telling my friend, oh, this was me growing up, like 12-year-old me listening to this. And it gets me thinking, what is that stream that's fed into from 12-year-old me listening to Willie D, getting pissed off about everything that creates the person that I am today? And even if we were to say, oh, it doesn't influence you, okay, fine. Of course it does. We all know that it does. But even if we were to say it didn't, the question now becomes, what does it say about me? That I listen to it and I'm entertained by it. I like it. It says something about me. The music that you listen to, it says something about you. The stuff that you like, it says something about you. Now that's just the music. What about the movies? Ooh, what about the friends that we have around us? How many of these influences, music, friends, movies, family, culture, do we take into our hearts before we have to recognize, wow, I've been heavily influenced by all of these? Now the scary part is when we recognize that it's happening unconsciously. Because what that means is that this character that you are wasn't created by you. You're a product. You're not the consumer, I guess. You're the product. And that means that you haven't chosen a character for yourself. And you haven't chosen a life for yourself. And it isn't until we start to become aware of this that we take the unconscious and we make it conscious, that we start to become our own real person. Because until we make the unconscious conscious, we're going to do what we've always done. And then we're just going to call it fate. Well, that's just the way I am. And by the way, this is all true. But now once we recognize I am the way I am now, because of this influence, and because of this, and because of, now we can decide. Now we can decide. One of the worst things that a person can be told a lot of times, or a girl can be told, you're just like your mom. You know, when you're 17, like, no, how dare you, you know? And then when you're in your 30s or 40s, if someone turns to you and says, you're just like your mom, you'll be like, yeah, just like my mom. Guys, some of us, you're just like your dad. No, I'm nothing like him. And as you get older, you'll be like, wow, I'm just like my dad. Hopefully in the good ways. Hopefully in the good ways, because in those early years, we want to reject the idea that we are a product of that stream that they've fed into us. In fact, in that case, it's probably an absolute river, you know? So you have to be a seed to receive a polluted stream. Now we're talking about the negative influences that feed into you. And so if you convince yourself, like, oh, I can be around the bad people and not be a bad person myself. Oh, I can listen to this really degenerate music, but not be influenced myself. I can watch these really, I don't know what you say, horrible, ugly movies, but not be influenced myself. If you weren't influenced by it, I guess it's a good question. Why is it then that you're so attracted to it? Why are you so drawn to it? The things that you like them for a reason. And again, until you understand why it is, you're going to be a product. You're not going to be the thing itself. And so, recognize it. Recognize the streams. Critically, not judgmentally. You have to look at yourself and say, oh, I'm a piece of garbage because I like Willie D. I'm a piece of garbage independent of Willie D. Maybe I can figure out what it is that made me what I am, such that I can now make myself. Now, can you listen to Willie D and not be influenced? Oh, once you recognize it. Yeah, but it takes a lot of work. Because you have to become yourself first, and not a product. And that's oftentimes the work of a lifetime. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Yeah. Happy Thursday.